sure people have said before, like how important it is to have mentors. And I would agree with that. I would add to it that it's really important to keep in mind where your mentor is at in their journey, and just keep that perspective in the back of your mind.
Welcome to Insights into Success. We're with your host, Paul Dodds. We hope to educate, inspire, and motivate you to achieve your own personal success. We talk to guests from all around the world from a variety of walks of life to hear the realities of their own journey to success. What challenges have they faced? How have they coped with failure? And what have been the keys, or will be the keys, to their own success? In our Read to Succeed interviews, we talk books that have inspired our guests, and for some, they share their secrets to marketing success. Join us as we give you insights into success.
All right, welcome to Insights into Success, where today's guest is Josh Kropkoff, who's agreed to join us and tell us about his interesting journey. So I want to start off, Josh, by you taking the floor and telling us a little bit about yourself and what exactly it is that you do these days.
For sure. So I am the co-founder and CEO of a company called The Email Agency, and we do email marketing, primarily email and SMS for e-commerce brands. My brother and I started the company back in 2018. We've got a small team. There's 10 of us now. And it's a pretty small group. We try to keep it to about a dozen clients a year. We kind of like being that boutique agency, and we help quite a bit more than that through consulting and things like that. But to date, we've worked with, I don't know the exact number because I stopped counting this year, but it was over 120 separate businesses that we've worked with in some capacity, whether that's consulting or email marketing, like done for you. And the number of niches, I think it was like 96 or something like that. So we've worked with a lot of different brands. We've worked with some that, some people may have heard of. Craft Sportswear is a world recognized brand that sponsors gold medal Olympic athletes. They're one of our clients. Also Mix Tiles, which is an international home decorating company. And we've got several others like that. So just about me is my background is kind of different. Not really maybe the typical how people get into this. I didn't have initially a marketing background. I was actually in law school when I discovered sort of this world of online business. And so that's kind of cool. I kind of fell into it backwards, I guess. What else do you want to know?
Well, actually, one thing I want to pick up on that you said initially, because it's interesting, it's against the typical sort of stereotype, and that is about big is always better. Growing your business, trying to make it as big as possible. But you're specifically talked about being a boutique agency, and that's a conscious decision on your behalf. So can you tell me a little bit about that and why you've decided to go down that, we say route, you'll say route, why you've gone down that track as opposed to the vast majority, which is about, I want to make my company as big as possible?
I think that I've always had sort of a plan. It's kind of a long-term plan. So I think that, my brother and I have always been very much into entrepreneurship since we were kids. And so we have a plan that involves more than just, email marketing. We want to do a lot of other things, including productions and real estate ventures and things like that. And we kind of have a long-term strategy there. But when it comes to the email agency specifically, we are really dedicated to, I guess, a high quality of service and a high quality product that we put out. And so to do that effectively, there's steps. And so I know there are a lot of agencies out there in my space that, maybe they started a little bit earlier than us, maybe kind of around the same time, but they kind of definitely would scale a lot quicker than us, where, some of our direct competitors have 60 or 70 clients that they're working with at a time, where we have, like I said, 10 to 12. And so The thing is, though, I talk to a lot of a lot of the people that end up becoming our clients come from those other agencies, because they sort of have this revolving door of like, you kind of get in there. If you're the client, they're really awesome as soon as you start with them, and then it kind of like fades very quickly because there's not very much attention being given to your brand. So it's really important for us to give the level of service to where like we're able to really focus on growing those brands. But we are trying to grow ourselves as well. It's just a bit of a longer term process because as we have like our team that's very much integrated into our system, and our clients that we work with are we're a little bit pickier, I guess, in terms of the clients we take. We don't just go with any company. We don't just work with any company that we see dollar signs and we feel like we can get them to sign on with us. We really want to make sure that like this is a company we can build a relationship with. We can really grow with them, and also they are at a place where they really need what we do and they're going to value what we do. And so I think that we will be able to grow for sure over the next couple of years, but it's definitely taken up to a certain point to sort of get this system in place. And so now when we add a certain number of clients, we add team members as well. But those team members go through a process with us so that it's very much happening, like a staircase, one step at a time, rather than trying to grow too quickly. And I have seen plenty of other agencies, and I have friends in the space where they kind of like blew up, going from having, 3-4 clients to suddenly having, 20, 30, 50 clients, and kind of broke their business. So we're not trying to do that either. And so I guess that's the best way I can answer that.
And do you think that your clientele recognizes that? And are you able to charge a premium over your competitors for that? Or in reality, you have to be price competitive with them irrespective?
Two different things on that. One is I think definitely our clients recognize the fact that we are, paying them a great deal more attention and like individualized attention. That's part of when clients first talk to us and they're considering working with us, that's part of what we talk about, kind of what makes us different than the other agencies out there, and email agencies specifically. We definitely put a premium on creative here. And coming from a direct response background, that is kind of like where our bread and butter is with creative. And so there's a difference because a lot of our closest competitors, it'll literally say like in their contract when you sign on with them that like, we are not an agency that's going to provide you with creative. We expect you to already have that. We're going to use what you have and just do your email marketing. So we definitely take a different approach there. In terms of what you asked about price, I would say that we are definitely competitive in terms of price, because we used to be, if you go back 2 years ago, we were definitely only offering our done for you services and doing it kind of on the high end. So I would always tell clients up front, like, we are more high priced than a lot of the ones that you'll talk to. What has changed, not that necessarily, because we still have that higher price level of service, but we have expanded our offerings so that we can help people no matter, where their budget lies for the most part. I mean, these are all, we mainly work with 7-figure businesses. We have a couple of clients who are above that and, 8, 9 figures. Very few that are in less than 7 figures. But we have consulting, like I mentioned, we have like multiple levels of that. And then we also have arrangements where it's kind of a combo where we are doing some of the email marketing for them, but they also have somebody on their team, somebody on their team that's doing it as well. So they're able to we do this hybrid model. So there's different ways that we approach that, to where we work with a lot of brands who are a bit smaller, that are kind of like, maybe they can't afford the retainer that we would charge some of the others, and we work with them in different capacities, if that makes sense. And that's just kind of something that's developed as we've learned the landscape of our marketplace over the last several years.
Sure. Now, earlier on, you talked about yourself and your brother being entrepreneurial. So can you kind of take us back a few steps to your childhood and give us a bit of insight into it and where this entrepreneurial spirit may have come from?
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of cool. Like we were, so we grew up in New Jersey, outside of Philadelphia, and suburban area. My dad worked for an insurance company. My mom was a nurse, and growing up, they kind of, I guess, kind of instilled in us, and we're 5 years apart. We're not like super close in age, but when we were kids, it was kind of like instilled in us to be sort of like, we were on the same team, basically. Like we had to, always kind of work together, and it was kind of just known that we were going to be kind of in the same friend group. And so that's kind of what happened. Like I had my friends that were my age and a little bit older. He had his friends, but our friend groups always mingled together. And for whatever reason, I think because my mom just kind of grew up similarly, or kind of came from that mentality of like, I'd rather have my house be sort of the hub where the kids all hang out. And so we grew up that way, where like our house was where all of our friends would come hang out. And being that we were in, growing up in New Jersey, there wasn't a ton to do. Like we would play sports and stuff, but it's cold most of the year, and you're kind of like stuck inside. And we would just come up with things to keep ourselves busy. So when we were, I guess I was about, 10 to 12 years old, we built a casino in my parents' basement. And it was kind of just a weird thing that we did, but it turned into like this years-long project, meaning that it became this thing to where, like I said, I was like 10 to 12 when we started. It went on until I graduated high school. And like, if you fast forward to that, my high school graduation party, we had like 100 people come to my house, and they were all like gambling in our downstairs casino. Because by then, like a lot of people knew about it. It was kind of like this neighborhood thing. And so we had a blackjack table that I eventually, initially, like we had one that we built ourselves. And later I bought one with my bar mitzvah money. And we had a craps table that we built. We had a roulette wheel that I found on auction on eBay. And it was all play money, by the way. We weren't doing like real illegal gambling stuff. No, but we had like this like Monopoly money and stuff. But it was like in the form of like parties. Like we would have like, a couple times a month, I guess, during the summers, we would throw these parties, and like all the kids would have their parents come over, and like different relatives, cousins, friends, things like that, neighbors. So that was like our first, I guess, entrepreneurial endeavor. And because we ran it like a business. Like we hired various people, out of our friend group to do different jobs within the casino, deal different games, or manage things, watch over things, help the hospitality side of things. We would have all these people over the house. So I think from then on, we kind of always knew we wanted to run a business and have that growing up. And it was not just me and him, like I said, some of our friends. So it's kind of cool. One of those friends works with us now in our agency. He's our main operations guy. So excuse me, my throat's a little sore today, but so definitely entrepreneurship since we were kids.
And so just quickly with that, though, like you said, it was play money, but how did you fund it all? Did people have to just pay an admission fee or something like that to help cover your costs, or?
There was really no costs. Like we didn't, like when I say hire, like it was all volunteer, like all of our friends kind of, Right. The only cost was like, we, over the years, it grew from like just being like very little, like materials, things we could find around the house and make, to like, as it became more of a thing, like, and I'm in high school at that point, like I would spend some side money on, getting a case of chips. And we had so many decks of cards that we would actually get them as canceled decks from the Atlantic City casinos. So Atlantic City was nearby, all the casinos. And if you go there and you talk to like a security guard, they would just give you like 20 decks of canceled cards like from the tables. So that was cool. But yeah, there was nothing to fund, but it was kind of like just it was a hobby, but it was our first. And we, of course, we did the selling lemonade on the corner and that kind of thing too. I think when I was maybe in middle school or something, I had like a palm reading stand at one point during like Halloween, like where I had people pay like $5 to get their palm read, stuff like that. So, we always did a ton of different just entrepreneurial experiments, I guess, growing up.
Yeah. And what about being a magician? I read that you were a magician there for a period of time. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I guess that's I can't neglect to mention that that's kind of the big one for me. That was my first, I guess, business, my first job. I got into magic when I was, I guess, like 14-ish, and I started, just putting on little shows for family and friends. And one of the things about me, like even though we had that kind of world going on at the house, in school, I was actually really shy because I went to a really big high school. We had like 3,000 kids, and it was really hard to like stand out. And I was, not very athletic. I played baseball in like elementary school and stuff, but I was kind of awkward, like a lot taller than a lot of the kids growing up. I'm only 6 feet, but like at the time I was like, had a growth spurt. I was kind of like tall and awkward and skinny. And just really shy. So like in high school, I different story, but accidentally came across learning magic, and I used it as sort of a tool to kind of break out of my shell. So I like one day just showed a trick to some kids like at my lunch table, and they really liked it, and it sort of caught on. They started asking me to do more tricks, and I'm like learning magic stuff. So I'm just showing them stuff that I'm learning and practicing. And before I knew it, I guess word kind of spread, and the whole cafeteria was like gathering around my lunch table to see magic. And again, big school. So like in a lunch period, we're talking a few hundred kids. So it would get like out of control, and the administrators kind of cracked down and like made it stop because there was like too many people like getting too excited about this thing. But I basically took that, and it started with school. Somebody just asked like, can you, like, if we pay you $100, can you perform it at a birthday party this weekend? And that's just how it started. So I was like 15, and from then through up until I graduated law school. So all the way through 26, I guess. I would, part-time on the side. I had like different jobs. I would work as a magician at restaurants. So I would do like close-up magic for people while they were waiting for their table or their food. And it was a good, like, definitely in high school, especially, and in college, it was a good side gig. Like I was making more money doing that than a lot of my friends who were working minimum wage. Because I would just charge $300 for a couple hours for a party or whatever. So that was kind of cool.
And then, so what about becoming a radio talk show host? How did that end up coming about?
He's got my whole biography here.
You got an interesting story. I'm trying to unearth.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, man. I got into that in college. So for a few years, a couple of friends and myself did a radio show, a talk show on campus, and that lasted a couple of years. I love radio. Today I do podcasting. And it's funny because it actually connects to email. Like I always tell people that email marketing is very much like a radio show. And I think it's a mistake. A lot of people have, a lot of brands, a lot of companies don't think of it that way. And they kind of wonder, like, what do I send emails about? How do I come up with content, and they're worried about emailing too much and so on and so forth. And it's like, it's very much like a radio show. If you've ever listened to a radio talk show, that host is going to be on the air at a certain time, pretty much every single day or whatever it is. And they're there. It doesn't mean that you listen every single day, but they're there every day. They show up. and you're kind of tuning in to hear what the latest is, right? And they might be continuing the conversation from the day before. And that is very much how every business should treat their email marketing, because people connect with email as a format. It is very much a one-to-one channel, which is very different than most marketing channels, which are one-to-many. So thinking of it that way, like either a radio broadcast or like a YouTube channel, is, I think, very beneficial for business owners.
So tell me, like, again, when I was looking at your background, before you got into email marketing, you had another business, and I understand it didn't go so well. Can you tell me a little bit about the lessons you learned from that, and maybe what influence that's had on you since starting up your email marketing company?
Yeah. So what happened was, and we'll kind of fill in the gaps a little bit of the story. Like when I was in law school, so I ended up in law school really because I was trying to buy some time. I didn't really know what to do because I graduated college. I went to college for hospitality. And the reason why is because I thought, maybe if I do this, I can actually like own a casino, right? I can build a casino because again, I'm growing up in New Jersey where there's all these casinos down the street, right? Not really, but like 40 minutes away. And so I think that was just kind of in my environment. So I thought that's what I wanted to do. Did some of that while I was in college, worked some jobs in that environment. Really didn't like it for a number of reasons and was like, I don't want to do this. So I kind of finished and was like, well, what am I going to do now? And I had a lot of people in college tell me, you'd be really good at law school, like, or you might make a good lawyer, go to law school. Cause for whatever reason, that's what I was told. So I tried it kind of to see, like, I had some interest in the law and I was like, all right, well, like, let me just see if I can figure something out for the next couple of years. And so while I'm in law school, I got into digital marketing, and the way that happened was through an email list. So I was a part of this email newsletter called Dating Advice Daily, and I joined it in college because it was an email list run by a guy. His name was Jason Capital, and he was just giving dating tips and dating advice for guys in their 20s mostly. And so I got into that. It was a cool email list. Like he sent an email every single day, and every email had some, awesome tip or just like cool value in it. And I continued, I kept up with it once in a while, even after school. And after I, kind of had success with dating and stuff, I went in this other direction career-wise, and I'm still reading these emails. And he kind of pivoted and started teaching more about how he built his business, which was to grow an email list and create, a lot of value, but also paid products that people could buy. And he became a millionaire at 24 doing this. Wow. And so he started revealing to his email list a little bit more about how he did that. And he started introducing things like copywriting, and things like, digital marketing and, funnels and things that I had never heard of, but I'm starting to get like fascinated by this stuff. And so, in 2016, he held this event out in Las Vegas, and he invited his email list. And my brother was at college. He was in college at FSU at the time, Florida State. And we were like, let's go. It's over Christmas break. Like, let's just go to Vegas and see what this is about. So we did it. And it was not just Jason Capital, but it was all these speakers who had similar stories. They were all pretty young. Like most of them, I'd say the average age was maybe like early 30s. But these were, men and women who had started an email list online for some sort of expertise. And they were all millionaires. They had all, made millions of dollars selling products online. And so that's where we were just kind of like, like there's something to this, I'm like, what am I doing in law school? Like I'm classmates with people who are like just stoked about getting a 6-figure salary when they're out of law school, right? And working for some big law firm where they're going to be, working, 70-hour weeks and, draining themselves. I'm like, this seems way better. Right. So, So we kind of got into it, and I right after law school decided to start a company with my brother and one of our friends from back home, and we were kind of like flying by the seat of our pants because we didn't really know what we were going to do. We created a product that uh, it taught body language secrets, and we were gearing it towards like lawyers and like other professionals who had to do like public speaking. So it was combining like things that I had learned from my time as a magician with things that I had learned, picked up throughout the years, and sort of, how to transfer some of the like performance stuff to professionals. And I still think the product was really good, but we didn't know what we were doing from a business sense. We did
Yeah.
have some mentorship at the time. Some people through that network I just mentioned, like all these different entrepreneurs with these email lists, there was some things where we were able to get involved with a group where they were teaching how to sort of build funnels online and do your marketing and copywriting, and it was great. We learned a ton,
Sure.
but and we even applied it. We grew our own email list, small, but the problem is we didn't have any capital to advertise with. And we were never really able to get momentum or traction for this brand new product that we were just like, and we were nobodies, so I think that the problem with it was, looking back, was just that like we were starting at the wrong end of the sort of the pyramid of how online business goes. And I learned this many years later, and I heard, it might have been Ty Lopez or somebody said this, and I was like, oh my God, like it's funny to hear it, years later. But basically, the crux of what he said is like an infinitely scalable business, the kind where you launch a digital product with funnels and everything. Like you do that last, you do that after you build a foundation with a service business first. You help others, in a one-on-one sense or a done for you sense. And you do that first. And then, because basically when you launch a digital business totally with, digital products online, you do need to have a lot of capital to throw at that, because you're going to be testing a ton of things and seeing what works. And so when you're just starting out, you don't have that. So it's better to start with either an e-commerce business, which has a lower barrier to entry and still some capital required, though, depending on what type of business it is. And the other kind is a service brand, so a business that helps others in the space and providing a service. So we had our skills that we had developed, and at the time it was only about 1 year to 2 years of developing copywriting, email marketing, digital marketing, that kind of thing. But once we shifted our focus to doing that, that's when we were able to grow a real business. But the first one had to fail first, and it was not a great scenario. I had gone into a lot of credit card debt to start that business. So I was like $40,000 in the hole just in credit cards because I had, just out of law school, I had like one credit card in high school that was like a $200 limit, whatever. And I always paid it on time. So I was able to get, apply and get almost 40 grand worth of credit. And I didn't know the value of this stuff back then. Like I was kind of stupid when it came to, just thinking that I could live off of credit while building an online business and it would all work out. That's one big mistake, for entrepreneurs out there. I would not recommend going that route. But once we shifted to actually taking these skills and, offering to do them for entrepreneurs who already had successful businesses that needed help with this thing, that business succeeded. But it definitely, we had to go through a failure to get there. And even launching this business was months of agony. Like I was, had lost everything at the time. I lost my apartment. I moved in. My brother had 1 year of college left. I moved into his college studio apartment and slept on the floor. We hoped it would be like a month or two, and it ended up being like 5 months. And every day, all I did was work on contacting prospective businesses, reaching out cold, getting on calls and trying to sell our email marketing business that was brand new at the time. But very much worth it and happy that we did it. I would advise people today to, have more of a financial plan than I did. Okay. But
and so from what you said earlier and that lesson you just described, can I take it that the long term, when you're sort of alluding to goals long term, that is to do what you attempted last time, but having built your base first, i.e., to ultimately develop a product, and with all your now developed email marketing skills and associated skills, at some point in the future, do something like that again, but being better prepared?
Yeah, and we kind of have that now. It's just kind of it's a early stage thing, but we started offering back in, it's almost 2 years now, I guess. In 22, we started offering I hesitate to call it a course because it's not, but it's a different format of what we do. So we basically have a community online where people can join it and learn our entire system that we do for brands. We teach it, and it's a community where there's a lot of there's like 50 plus hours of video trainings in there, and like there's all kinds of templates and guides, and we're constantly putting things in there. But then we're also like consulting them because we do like weekly calls where they can come and get our help one-on-one. It's not something that we have actively like put an, it's something that we offer to people when they come to us. But it's not something that we have like spent a bunch of money on ads and like tried to scale that side of things. That will come though in the future. But right now it's very much just sort of building the foundation like everything else.
And now, so I understand you're also a podcast host. So can you tell me a little bit about that and what's been your motivation for doing that?
Yeah. So I think my motivation, and maybe it's a little bit different because I think a lot of people do the podcast thing for like exposure for their company. I see it as a much more long-term thing. I am, as I mentioned, like I love radio and I love this format. Podcast is close to radio, not quite the same, but I love the sort of discussion format. So I started the show really because I wanted to add that into, I guess, what I do every day, because a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis is very, I guess, it's either like sales and marketing focused, or else it's actual like operations type stuff, right? With email marketing. So very different. Whereas the podcast format allows me to be a lot more free flowing and sort of, have that showmanship, which I try to bring to email marketing, by the way, as much as possible. But it is a show where I tell the story. So like I just gave you kind of the it's long-winded for sure, but the bird's eye view of sort of our story. I tell that story through solo episodes in the podcast. So starting at the point of when we first went to that conference and learned sort of like what digital marketing was, and we're exposed to that world through like the things that we did to build that first business, and then have it all come crashing down to, going to building the email agency and starting to get clients and all of that. So we have those episodes. And then in between, I do interviews with just entrepreneurs who use email, like who've been successful with email. So like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Elliot Hulse, but he is a famous YouTuber. He's got like, I don't know, like 3 million subscribers on YouTube. He started I guess a brand it's called Strength Camp, and it's like a bodybuilding thing. So I had him on as a guest at one point because he kind of built his business with email. And I've talked to Dr. Matthew Dunn, who's one of the OGs of email, who worked on it at Microsoft back in the 80s and stuff like that. So I do these interviews in between, and I guess the goal is, it's hard to say because I don't think it's really formed yet. Like it's still a show that I do, and it's not like we don't have a huge following, although we do get thousands of downloads, which is pretty cool. But it's kind of like a longer term thing. I kind of want to have this show over time and slowly grow it. And then I guess, eventually it will help when, when I'm promoting more like digital products and things like that. But I don't really have like a huge business reason for doing the show.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
tell our story, but I don't like promote our agency on there or like our
Yeah.
stuff. It's really just to sort of have this format, I guess.
Yeah, and I think from what you've said about your background too, it kind of makes sense. You enjoy doing this sort of thing. So, look,
Yeah,
there's a lot to be said in life of doing things that you like. It doesn't all have to be about money. And look, if money comes
definitely.
from it, that's a bonus, but that need not be the motivation.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so, for you looking back, what do you think have been the key lessons you've learned so far in your entrepreneurial journey? And also, what do you think, reflecting on that too, are the key qualities for people to be successful as an entrepreneur?
So these are great questions. So lessons, there are a lot, and I continue to learn them. And I think that's one of the things is like, no matter what stage someone's at in entrepreneurship, they're always learning. So like, you should never have like, it's good to have goals and to like have these sort of like, I guess, place markers or like mileposts that you're trying to get to, but you don't really have
Yeah.
a finish line. And I think that that's something that like entrepreneurs that I talk to that or that I look up to, that's very much something that they have instilled, is like they're always evolving, they're always growing, and they're learning lessons too. So one of the key lessons is it's really important to keep in mind, if I'm sure because I've listened to some of your shows, and I know you've got a lot of entrepreneurs on here to sort of give these types of insights to like their story and lessons that they've learned. So I'm sure people have said before, like how important it is to have mentors. And
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I would add to it that it's really important to keep in mind where your mentor is at in their journey, and just keep that perspective in the back of your mind. We have, learned so much from different mentors over the years, and sometimes the lessons we've learned from them were not the ones that they intended us to learn, meaning that people go through different life stages, and it's crazy. Like some of the folks that I really learned from at in the past are at stages now where they're like either doing something totally different with their lives, or like they've moved on in some way, or they've just, what they were doing morphed into something totally different. And like in some cases you'll hear them today say something that's like total contradictory to what they taught me 3 years ago, right? And it's like
Right.
now they don't agree with that anymore, right? So, and especially in the online business world, you see that, like that's how
Yeah.
it goes. People go all over the place and they change their minds, they change their view. So it's important to like keep that in mind as you learn from mentors, that they are in a journey too. So don't take anything that they say like verbatim. Always take what they say and figure out how to apply it to your situation. But like one of the key parts in our story, and I actually did a podcast episode recently on this part, was the turning point for us in building the email agency was when he actually said, we're going to stop doing what at the time our particular mentor, who had been great and led us to a certain point, there was something wasn't clicking, and we finally said, you know what, forget all of this stuff. We're going to try it our way. And we tried something that no one had said to do. And that's the thing that ended up working. But we kind of fell on it on our own. So there's stuff like that where it's like, you can only learn so much from people. And you've got to sort of be willing to bend the rules, or at least listen to yourself. And listen to your own instincts sometimes. And there was a second part to your question. What was it? Because I kind of went off on.
Yeah, just what do you think are the key qualities, like reflecting back
Oh,
on your experience, what do you think the key qualities for people to be successful entrepreneurs?
I would say respect for the process, meaning your own process as an entrepreneur. And part of that is like having a thick skin to what the universe may throw at you. And sort of being relentless. Like I think that you go through periods of time where you're like almost there. You're like, you have a goal and you're trying to get to this next level or this next phase, and you will be challenged at the time when you're about to get there. And it's like, just there are people who get to that point and they can't take it anymore and they stop. So just never stop. You just got to keep going. And so like I've gone through periods of time where like nothing was going right. And those time periods, especially if they last for months, can be really, really hard to get through. And you really do just have to keep the faith sometimes. And I've been through, like I mentioned, we had another business partner, and he was in this business initially, and we went through him, separating from our business a few years ago. That was really hard and challenging, I think, for my brother and I, because I guess we had just built this thing where it was the three of us kind of doing this as a team, and we kind of relied on each other. And we were, I guess, not prepared for when it happened. He was actually kind of like, I won't get into the story, but like basically a competitor took him from us, which was crazy. So you kind of, you learn things like that, but the rewards of entrepreneurship in any business are also like really, really powerful. And I think that one of the things for me has been to learn not to ride the roller coaster so much, because you can get really, like, you can feel really low when those times are challenging, or where things don't work out, or where it seems like things are taking forever to work for you. And by the same token, you can get really high when something works, and you have like this victory, and you can feel like on top of the world. And the problem is everything, it's always going to regress to the mean. It's always going to come back. So I just, try, and this has been a thing for me like the last year to 2 years, is like, try not to ride that roller coaster. You try to stay at like a happy medium. You don't get too high with the highs. You don't get too low with the lows, because you're just doing your job, and your job is to build your business, whatever your mission is. You just focus on that every day, and it's really the journey. So, you never feel like, okay, like I've arrived, or like, okay, this is done. Like this is the last straw. I can't take it anymore. But it's all part of the journey. Even the people who like stop the one thing and they go to the next thing, that's part of it too. Things evolve. So hope that answers your question.
Look, I think that's a great answer. And I think just taking it all in as I listen to you, it's so true. And I think the way that you said it, I really appreciate you expressing it in that way, because I think a lot of people listening to it will relate to it and understand the authenticity of it. And I think it's great advice, and it's something that I'm trying to do myself too, is just trying to stay fairly even, that you do get your ups and downs, but you want to try and avoid being on that roller coaster, and just kind of keep it fairly even. Understand when you've got the negatives going on, that it's just part of the process. It won't last forever. And equally, when you have your highs, just remembering that it's not going to be there forever either, and just trying to just stay on track and keep it fairly even. I think it's a great way to go, because mental health is incredibly important, and you definitely, as an entrepreneur, challenged with your mental health, I think, from time to time with the journey.
Definitely.
So I think great advice.
For sure. And later when we talk about books, I got a book recommendation to do with that stuff that we just talked about. So that's cool.
Fantastic. Well, I'm just conscious of time, actually. So unfortunately, I could talk to you for ages. We haven't really talked about email marketing so much.
I'm always up for part two.
Yeah, exactly. I think we have to do that. I'm a big fan of email marketing. I think it's a underrated means of communication. I think it kind of went out of fashion there for a bit. People into obviously Facebook advertising, etc., other social media platforms. But the thing about email marketing is you get to communicate one-on-one, and you control that too. Whereas if you're, say using social media, you're at the control of the platform owner as to who sees it and that. Whereas this way, you take the control back, and you manage that communication. So there's a real skill to it, no question about it, and to get it right. So I'd be interested to talk to you again, and maybe next time talk more specifically about the email marketing side of it, because I am a fan.
For sure,
but
yeah.
for this episode, I'm going to have to wrap it up. But the good news is we are going to do a quick segment shortly on Read to Succeed. But Josh, look, really awesome to talk to you.
Thank you.
Just your sincerity comes across. You're interesting to talk to. You're giving us an authentic view of your story so far, which is what I hope to achieve in their interview. So thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This kind of stuff is my passion also to talk about, and a lot of podcast hosts kind of skip over it. So I really do appreciate it, and definitely, yeah, I'd be happy to come back and talk more about how to email more effectively, and it kind of ties in with all the stuff we just talked about too. So I would definitely do that at some point.
All right, sounds good. But for the meantime, thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon.
Awesome.